December 7th, 1941. A day that will live in infamy. It was a quiet Sunday morning on the island of Hawaii back on December 7th, 1941. The U.S. sailors were allowed to sleep in on board their ships on Sunday morning. Some of the sailors were just waking up, and some were going to Sunday Mass on what appeared to be just another day on the Big Island. This would be recalled as President FDR referred to a day that will live in infamy. This would be an event that would forever change American history. This event will bring war between two alliances, the Allies versus the Axis. The Pearl Harbor attack would involve these two leaders of two different countries. American President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States, Democrat, who lived from 1882 to 1945. Japan's Emperor Hirohito, 124th Emperor of Japan. The Emperor of Japan wanted peace, but the military leaders did not believe the Americans would meet the demands in their negotiations for peace. The Imperial Japanese leaders laid out an attack on Pearl Harbor that would involve two waves of some 350 planes to attack Pearl Harbor. While negotiations were going on in Washington, D.C., the Imperial Japanese Navy left Japan on November 26, 1941. The Japanese Navy was located some 315 miles north of Oahu, Hawaii on December 4, 1941. Time was running short for both sides to come to an agreement for a peaceful solution. Oblivious from the fact the Japanese Navy were about 350 miles north of Hawaii, these sailors held a band contest the night before on Saturday, December 6, 1941. While the band contest was going on, time was slowly taken away for what would soon be some of the sailors' last exciting moments of their lives. Here is a picture of the Imperial Japanese Task Force heading towards Hawaii, arrived northwest of Oahu on December 4th, 1941. Admiral Izaraki Yamamoto, from 1884 to 1943, led the task force to Pearl Harbor. Even though the Imperial Japanese Navy would declare a successful attack, this admiral would say one of the most profound statements about the war declared on America. We have awakened a sleeping giant. The clock was taken away as the sailors finished their band contest and went back to their ships for their night's sleep. Little did the U.S. military leaders realize this attack would forever affect their careers as well. Here is a picture of some of the Imperial Japanese pilots who would participate in the attack of Pearl Harbor. December 7th, 1941. Time, 1848 hours. 7:48 a.m. Captain Mitsuya Fuchida, seen here in this picture, would lead the Japanese planes to attack Pearl Harbor. Opana Radar Site, Hawaii. Time, 1958 hours, 7:53 a.m. These three inexperienced radar men failed to realize that the blips they saw on the radar screen was an attack by the Japanese plane. Lieutenant Kermit Tyler, 2 days on the job. Private George Elliott. Private Joseph L. Lockhart. 13 of these B-17 bombers realized the Japanese pilots were attacking Pearl Harbor. 2 of these bombers turned away, while 11 of them figured out how to land from a different place without being attacked by the Japanese. The USS Ward fired the first shot, suspecting they found a Japanese mini-sub trying to get inside Pearl Harbor underwater and through the underwater gate before they closed it. Here is a beached Japanese 2-man sub that was found by the Allies after the attack. These were supposed to be the facilities that the Imperial Japanese were to target and destroy once the attack began. Fortunately for the Americans, the Japanese did not get all of these sites as planned. This is a drawing of the locations of the ships and other things looked like at the time of the attack. First planes take off at 7:48 a.m. civilian time, which would be 1948 hours military time. The planes fly over this mountain, starting the first wave of the attack at 7:53 a.m. or 1953 hours military time. The bombs began to drop at Ford Island. All the soldiers and sailors could do was take cover and watch all the action. Here's another picture of watching the action and feeling helpless. It was the destroyer USS Ranger that sent out the dispatch notice seen in the picture below. This dispatch definitely said the attack was not a drill. The second wave of the attack happened at 8:55 a.m. or 20:55 military time. While the other B-17 bombers retreated, this one flew right through the action and still waited safely. The Japanese destroyed 350 American planes that were left out in the open, leaving them to be an easy target to destroy. Panic and destruction was everywhere. All the people could do was run and take cover. This was definitely not a drill. These two pilots alone for the Americans made it up in the air with their planes to fight the Japanese in the air. Pilot George Welch. Pilot Kenneth Taylor. Fellow Americans cheer the two pilots who take to the skies to fight the Japanese planes. Meanwhile, the Japanese mini-subs attacked the battleships as seen here in this picture. The Japanese even used torpedoes launched from their planes. Using aerial torpedoes, this helped to make the damage even more evident. Here's a picture of one of those Japanese mini-subs that never made it to Pearl Harbor. It is quite possible that both of the sailors died inside this sub. It is possible that the USS Ward actually sunk this submarine. The Pearl Harbor attack ended at 9:55 a.m. or 2155 hours. It took the Imperial Japanese Navy about 1 hour to deliver a crippling blow to the United States and declaring war on the Americans as well. It would take time for the Americans to rise from the fall, but rise to victory they would. The losses of the Imperial Japanese were 4 mini-subs, 1 mini-sub grounded, 25 aircraft destroyed, 74 aircraft damaged, 64 men killed, 1 sailor captured. The American losses on Pearl Harbor Day were total casualties 2,403, military casualties 2,355, civilian casualties 68. Military breakdown were Army 218, Marines 109, Navy 1,777, mostly on board the USS Arizona. Here's the news headline in one of the American papers after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Indeed, the Imperial Japanese had awakened a sleeping giant. Here's another American newspaper announcing the declared war. The Axis powers were Germany, Italy, Imperial Japan. The next day, President FDR gave a popular speech to the American people. It may have went something like this. This day will live in infamy. We Americans must declare war on Japan for attacking Pearl Harbor yesterday morning, December 7th, 1941. The German Führer, Adolf Hitler, declared war on America before this Reichstag body on December 8th, 1941. Our world was indeed at war. The next few pictures will show some of the action. After the attack on Pearl Harbor was ended, the pictures of the two men shown next was relieved of command. It was a very sad day for the U.S. Navy. Admiral Husband E. Kimmel, 1882 to 1996, died at the age of 86 years old. It has been documented that after the attack on Pearl Harbor, as he watched it from the backyard of his home, a bullet from one of the Japanese planes missed killing him. I wish that bullet would have pierced my heart and killed me. Lieutenant General Walter Campbell Short, 1880 to 1949. It is believed that the general was playing a round of golf that Sunday morning when the attack took place. It is a good thing that the Japanese did not bother to invade Hawaii as well, for the war might have taken longer to end. Admiral Ernest Joseph King, 1878 to 1966. Admiral King replaces Admiral Kimball after the Pearl Harbor attack. Admiral Charles E. Nimitz, 1885 to 1966. 5 stars. Admiral Chester Nimitz takes command of the Pacific Fleet for the Navy. Here's a picture of Admiral Nimitz planning the naval strategies with his top officers. Here's a picture of the major players in World War II that lasted from 1941 to 1945. Here are the two military leaders of the Pacific Arena sitting with the President FDR at Pearl Harbor. President FDR, General Douglas MacArthur, Admiral Nimitz. The Allied leaders seen in this picture were Sir Winston Churchill, England; President FDR, United States; Joseph Stalin, Russian leader. Here's what the headlines looked like after Pearl Harbor attack. It would take 4 long years of war between these two alliances until one of the alliances would win. Here's a picture of the 3 leaders of the Axis powers. The Allies in return declared war on the Axis. World War II would begin on December 7th, 1941 and would end on the following dates. Normandy, June 6, 1945. Japan on August 6th and 9th, 1945. Here are some more World War II pictures to view and learn to appreciate the sacrifices our men gave to keep our country free. After the Pearl Harbor attack, 3 of the 8 battleships were totally destroyed. One of these 3 battleships would forever remain in Pearl Harbor. Only 5 of the 8 battleships would rise again and be repaired to continue the fight with the Imperial Japanese. These 3 ships totally destroyed were Battleship Arizona, Battleship Nevada, Battleship Oklahoma. As many as 1,700 sailors on board the Arizona lost their lives that day. Many of them were only 20 years old. There would be many battles fought in the Pacific arena that would make the difference between winning or losing for the Allies. We will take a look at 3 of these, which were Wake Island, Battle of Midway, Battle of Okinawa. There would be many battles fought in Europe as well that would make the difference between defeat or victory. Some of these battles we will view were Battle of Moscow, Battle of the Bulge, Battle of Berlin. Pacific Ocean, Battle of Wake Island, December 8th to 23rd, 1941. One of the most famous generals was General George S. Patton. These were some of his famous words about the war and Europe. We're going to go over there and kick butt. The Battle of Moscow, October 41 to January 1942. Adolf Hitler lost this battle because he refused to listen to his generals and invaded Russia in the dead of winter. Without proper winter clothing and provisions to help the German soldiers during this battle, many froze to death. Battle of Midway, June 4th through the 7th. This was a strategic battle because the airfields located on the island. With the heavy losses of the Imperial Japanese Navy ships during the Battle of Coral Sea and afterwards, the end of the Imperial Japanese Empire was slowly coming to an end. Battle of the Bulge, December 16, 1944 to January 28, 1945. Back in Europe, this battle would be the Hitler's last stand before the Germans would eventually surrender. The fall of Berlin would be Hitler's final fall to defeat. Battle of Lake Gulf, October 23rd to October 26, 1944. Largest naval personnel operation recorded in naval history. Some 5,000 naval personnel participated in recapturing the Philippines from the Imperial Japanese. Here's a picture of the map of the battle between the Allies and Imperial Japan. General Douglas MacArthur's famous saying can be seen in the next picture. I shall return. General MacArthur used PT boats like this one seen in this picture to do what we see in the next picture. I have returned. Battle of Guadalcanal, August 7, 1942 to February 9, 1943. Codename Operation Watchtower. This would be one of the last strongholds of Imperial Japan would lose before their downfall. Imperial Japan would send about 31,000 troops to defend Guadalcanal. Japan would lose some 20,000 of their soldiers. 60,000 U.S. Marines land on Guadalcanal and begin to fight for this island. 40,000 U.S. Army soldiers invade the island. A total of about 104,000 U.S. troops fight for this island. Americans were optimistic that soon the war with Japan would be over, reading headlines like this one shown here in this picture. Americans were also getting more optimistic with headlines like this one as well. Time was running out for the Axis as Allies won one battle after another. June 6, 1945, D-Day. Some 150,000 Allied troops invade Normandy Beach, France. 73,000 more troops between Utah and Omaha beaches. General Dwight D. Eisenhower encourages his troops before the invasion. A map diagramming the beaches invasion from England. Here's a map diagramming where the troops were to invade further on. Invasion of Germany by the Russians in April 1945 began. Berlin, Germany falls to the Russians on May 2nd, 1945. Germany is divided in two between the Americans and the Russians. Germany now becomes a divided nation. It took 45 years later before Germany became a reunited nation again. The Americans would load the atom bomb on board the super bomber and fly them to the two cities seen in the next picture. On August 6, 1945, the Americans would defeat the Imperial Japanese. First bomb would be dropped on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and August 9, 1945 on Nagasaki, Japan. The atom bombs would be carried in this container that was called the Little Boy. The Enola Gay flying towards Japan with the little boy on board. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima, Japan. August 9, 1945, Nagasaki, Japan. Italy had surrendered earlier on October 13, 1943, and then helped the Allies fight against the Nazi Germany. At the end of the war, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini was executed by his own people. World War II came to an end on September 2, 1945, and the Americans and Allies enjoyed the foregoing peace that the whole world at last embraced.